Hello and welcome to the Startup and Career Show. It's an interactive talk show where we bring to you inspirational and real life stories of distinguished leaders, including startup founders and corporate leaders, who have not only seen successes and failures in equal measure, but have also demonstrated determination and perseverance against all odds. I'm your host, Rushabh, in conversation with our guest for today, Mr. Mooshir Vahanvati, founder of Rayden Interactive, offering better healthcare experiences to patients. He's also called Creator of Happiness. So we've invited him to talk about his experience of building a happy and a winning team because he's scaled his team from 8 members to over 800 now in just a span of about 3 years. A very warm welcome, Mooshir. Glad to have you on the show today.
Yeah, thanks, Rishabh. Thanks for having me here. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Absolutely, Mooshir. So to begin with, I would request you if you could share your professional journey all these years. You come from an engineering background. So how was your journey starting with internship?
Yeah, I'll just briefly talk about how my study had also been. So while I started out as an engineer in my undergraduation, I always wanted to be in a creative profession. And so like immediately after engineering, I ended up doing a master's in design. And for some reason, I wasn't satisfied with that either. So I went on to do another master's specializing in interaction design. So I ended up kind of studying for a good 8 years before I actually started to work. So, and then I realized, I've done enough. Now let's get to work and start doing something. But so while I was still studying for my final, like my second master's in NYU in a place called Tisch School of Arts, that's when I first started doing an internship with an organization called Frisia. And I had no idea that where life was going to head out to be, because I wanted to be somewhere in the frame of engineering, design, and art all put together. But that's where I first started off with. My first internship was with Frisia, and over the years we've kind of established a very long term relationship with them.
So that's interesting. You said you, as an intern, you started with Frisia, right? And now you become their partner. So how has been your transition like? Can you talk about your experiences in dealing with Frisia, and moreover, how did you forge this relationship from being an
Yeah.
intern to a partner now?
Yeah, definitely. So, when when I first started as an intern, I came from a design background. So I was initially working in a very different space. So I was working on developing their marketing collateral, doing graphic design work for them, and all of it. Eventually, when I graduated and joined full time, they were at a stage where they were, a team of 40, 50 people, and really trying to kind of, scale up the organization. And so I started working as an associate product manager, primarily contributing towards the UI UX design of their application, right? And so I did that for almost a year or so, full time in New York. And unfortunately, me and my wife, we never thought about settling in US as an option. Like while it was a great experience, great exposure, we always imagined, settling in India and kind of doing something on our own. So back in 2010, we decided that we'll move back to India, start our own design studio, which is usually a norm. Like if you study design, your aim is to kind of have an independent studio or business function that allows you to do the work that you like to do. And so with that aim, we kind of moved back to India, and it just so happened coincidentally that when we were moving back, the then CTO of Frisia, Evan Roberts, he asked me if I would want to continue working with them as a consultant designer. And so it kind of started off with a very small level of work where after we came back here, we kind of started working as an institution, like as Rayden Design. We started working with them to facilitate a lot of the design requirement that they had in the organization. And over the years from 2010 to 2016, we did a lot of such work primarily as an external consultant. So during that time, contributed towards the UI UX of a lot of their applications and all of that. And we were also working with a bunch of other clients at the same time, because as a design studio, the idea is that you're a consulting firm, you get work from various different clients, and you kind of deliver those services. So we, however, realized that our relationship and work with Frisia was, a lot more interesting and fun, and we were also getting more involved in doing that work. So in 2016, we actually took a very conscious decision whereby we said that, we instead of working with 5 different clients and dealing with the uncertainties of work coming in at different times and in different capacities, that becomes very difficult to scale as an organization. Because when you have work, you have a lot of work. And when you don't have work, you don't know what to do with the people that you have on your team. And so we took a very conscious decision saying that, we won't work with 7 different clients. Instead, we'll focus on just one and have a deeper relationship with them. So in 2016, I got a little more involved with everything Frisia facing. And I actually started heading a development team within Frisia, which was primarily front-end development team, and started getting more into the product side of things. So rather than being an external designer, I was now a product manager working with the dev team and kind of giving direction to the overall product from a UI UX perspective. So that happened from 16 to 19 for good 3 years, during which time we launched a lot of new features, a lot of new product enhancements, and all of that. And again, the trust and relationship was kind of growing because of this as well over time, to a point where in 2019, Frisia was actually looking for an offshore partner to collaborate with. And since they already knew me, since we already had a firm here, they asked me if I'd be interested in taking that up. And it was very uncharted territory for us because, we come from a background of design. We've never led an IT organization or, had a big company either. So it was a challenge for us. We pondered over it for some time and we figured, why not? I mean, how hard can it be to, take up, set up an organization and, kind of scale it up from there. So from 19 onwards, we set up Rayden Interactive as a separate function, started recruiting for various different departments. And, since then, we've never looked back. I think we've kind of kept growing from a team of 8 to now well over 900 almost, and I think we hope to be close to 1200 by the end of this year. So it's been a crazy journey in that sense, from the time that I remember when I first was interning with Frisia to now. But it's been a fun ride and a lot of different learning for us throughout that journey as well.
Wow, I mean, this is amazing, Mooshir, because especially to the students who will listen to this conversation later, it's a classic case study, because you joined Frisia as an intern, right? But because you had a good rapport relation over these many years, apart from the work for sure, you were able to partner with them, right? I mean, a decade down the line. So this is amazing. So anybody who's listening to this conversation or viewing this conversation later, I think this is a textbook example, how to charter your own career, so to speak. But with respect to Rayden, if you can talk about, because the way you started your organization, you had to change course here, right? Because of the new conversation from Frisia that came up. So can you talk about Rayden Interactive, about the services that it offers? Because it is more about patient experiences and you support from a backend, right? So what it is all about, if you can just help us understand.
Sure. So, let me start from, 2016 when, so like I said, I come from a background of design and my contribution has, at a personal level, has always been in the product side of the business for Frisia. But when we started Rayden Interactive in 2019, our initial setup was to have just a technical support team. So we hired a team of 8 people who came from a background of providing technical support, got a manager, a couple of managers actually, and kind of, got that team going. That was essentially our pilot program to see if this works, right? The type of work that we used to manage back then was also very simple and straightforward. It had set processes that we had to train people on, and they would kind of then start operating on those processes. Once we got that going, we realized that this is something that actually works well and we can make it work. And we are able to scale it to different levels. So very quickly from technical support, we then split into having another team for market research, which does a lot of the demand generation activities for potential clients of Frisia. So this team actually spends a lot of time in researching and creating accounts that the sales team can then reach out to for pitching Frisia to them. So that was our second team. And, post which our third team came up, which was client solutions. Now, in any product-based software company, a client solutions team is the one that's responsible for implementing the product. So let's say a company buys Freesia. It requires them to customize the product quite significantly for them to solve the problems that they're trying to solve. So essentially, I'll just take a minute to talk about what Freesia does and where that comes in. It will help the context. But Phrygia is primarily in the patient check-in domain. So what it does is it provides an interface for the patients to fill in all of their medical information digitally, directly, either on a touchscreen device or on their phone itself. So that when they go to a hospital, they no longer have to fill out a paper form, right? They do all of this digitally. And from the hospital's perspective, this integrates directly into their backend patient management system. So they don't have to, the front desk staff doesn't have to create records manually on their end. It is as the most simplest analogy there is, doing like a web check-in for a flight, right? So before you go to the hospital, you get a message saying, you have an appointment due. Do you want to check in for that appointment? You fill out all your information beforehand so that when you get to the hospital, there's no wait time, there is no filling out forms and all of that. All of the information is already there, and you can straight away go for seeing your doctor in that sense. So coming back to the client solutions team, they're responsible for illustrating out the entire workflow that the practice needs. So now, if you imagine, different hospitals will have different requirements. If I'm an orthopedic surgeon versus a pediatric versus a general surgeon, the type of information I need from my incoming patients is going to be different. So the interview or the questions that are set up in the product is what the client solutions team kind of works on, right? And that's one of the biggest teams that we have right now, because every time we sign a new client for Phrygia, this team kind of goes in, starts interacting with Phrygia's clients and starts to set up the product for them. Post which, once the product is set up and ready, they actually hand off that account to another team called the client success team, which is responsible for making sure that the product is being utilized, they're getting the required response from it, the required investment from it, and all of that. And if there are any questions or concerns that the client has, they are able to resolve that. So that's the other bigger team that we have. So in that sense, we basically now have a setup of close to 27 different teams that all work for Phrygia, and are a counterpart to everything that exists in a product-based IT company. And we support end-to-end everything that's required for Phrygia. Very recently, in this year, we also started taking on actual development and product management work from Phrygia as well. So we have a dev team now, we have a product management team now that actually contributes towards adding new functionality and feature to the Phrygia product itself. So in that sense, for all intents and purposes, we are now an extension of Phrygia in India. And it's, like I said, it's been a crazy journey for us, because when we first started out, I mean, even I didn't know everything that goes into a product organization, because I only used to look at the product and the design of the product. And I always thought that that was the key part of a company. Little did I know that the product is just 20% of what the organization is. There is this whole other set of function which is required for the organization to be able to sell the product, for the product to be successful, for it to start generating revenue. There is a finance team that does the invoicing and collection of payments and all of that. And I mean, over the years now, I've gotten a much better understanding of what it takes to actually run an IT organization in that sense.
Wow, absolutely. I mean, it's a humongous loads of work, right? I mean, and this spreads across different departments, everything. But Mooshir, since you are a designer at heart, right? So and you also support the health tech platform, so to speak. So wanted to know the importance of design as an element in this health tech environment. So if you can give 2 cents on that.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the things that so the prime requirement in any design that one does is kind of focusing on the user group that you're catering to, right? Like if you're if you're a designer in, say, Zomato, you're looking at a user group that wants to order food online. Like that's your basic requirement, right? Similarly, if you're in the health tech domain, ideally, especially in the US market, there is a huge population of baby boomers who are, currently, above 55, 65 years of age. And those are that essentially becomes your target user group because I would say almost 70% of patients in the US kind of fall into that category. And those are the ones who actually need medical attention more than some of the younger population. Now, having said that, that also presents a very unique problem to us as designers because we have to make our applications and the UI in a way that can be used by people who are of that age group, who are not native users of technology, didn't grow up with internet, didn't grow up with using mobile phones and touchscreen devices, and hence it needs to be really, really simple and straightforward for them to use. And in design, you always look at the lowest denominator, right? So if you have a user base of people from somebody who's really savvy at using technology to somebody who's not, you make the UI such that it's easiest for somebody who's not used to using technology, right? Because if they can do it, everybody else can also do it. And so in this particular instance, our biggest challenge is making sure that uh, we make our UI such that an old grandpa who's 65 years old, maybe has a shaky finger, may not be able to see very clearly, and also has never used a touchscreen device, is still able to use our application to input the information that he needs to provide, right? And that's the key challenge from a design perspective, and which is actually a fun challenge for us because it gives us a very clear direction in terms of what we need to cater to.
Oh, absolutely. Making a simple design is much more complex, at least in the initial phase, right? I mean, so that people understand it very easily at the end when they are the end users. Absolutely. So, Mooshir, you started Rayden Interactive in 2019, right? And you had actually changed course of your business, so to speak. And in the first year of operations, you had to face the pandemic. So, how did you keep your keep your business growing at that point in time?
Yeah, I think the pandemic, taught everybody a lot of things. I think for me personally, we used to actually get a lot of questions from our team before the pandemic, asking if it would be possible for them to work from home or not, and all of it. And I used to be of a mindset that it's not going to be possible because you have to come to the office and you have to work from the office. And but the pandemic happened and we were all forced to let people go home. I was actually very concerned when I actually let people take their laptops and go home, right? Because I was like, I don't know, they've taken the systems, they've gone back to their hometowns. I don't know if I'll ever see them again or what have you. But things actually worked out really well. And I think, I would say I'm personally a changed man because of all of it, because uh, we were able to then pivot our whole way of working to say that let's focus on the outcomes and not on the time spent or the hours somebody's working. And we changed what we measure and how we do it to a point where then as long as somebody is delivering what is expected, it doesn't matter when they do it, where they do it. So to give you a very concrete example, if let's say one of our market research analysts, their target is to be able to create 40 accounts a day, right? And it doesn't matter if they do it in 2 hours or in 8 hours. Our assessment is that it would take them somewhere around 6 hours or 7 hours worth of work to do this work. But if somebody's really good at it, they can do it really quickly and then be off for the rest of the day. Because our focus is to say, okay, you deliver 40 accounts, doesn't matter when you do it, doesn't matter where you're working from, as long as you're able to meet those requirements, we're happy with you. And I think that that change of mindset has actually really helped us continuing to kind of operate remotely and also continue to grow our organization that way. Because even when the pandemic ended, there was a thought where we felt that people might want to come back to work, and we gave that as an option to everyone, saying, if you're in Pune, we have an office. You can come to the office and work from the office if you like, right? And we have close to 350, maybe 400 people in Pune, and people don't come to the office. They're perfectly happy working from home, and that's when we realized, that is what people want. And as long as we're able to make it work for ourselves, giving people that freedom and responsibility, so it works for them, works for us.
Oh, very true, very true. In fact, things have changed so much, right? I was reading an article in the morning today that it's not just about a job; it's more about people. The passion economy is for real. People want to work for a cause, and if they are happy about doing it, so they the output is much better. And I think you're actually delivering that, so to speak. But Mushir, with respect to your team building, if I were to understand, right, for any startup to be successful, a team with a winning mindset is extremely important. Now,
Mhm.
getting a team, of 8, 10 members is not very difficult, right? But now you've grown to over 800, and that too in such a small time frame. So how did you develop your team, in the first place, if I were to ask you?
Mhm. Yeah. Um, I think a lot of it kind of stems from just the way that we've approached all of this. I think two things. One is we never had a background in uh, running a corporation, right? Which meant that any problem or issue that we looked at it from a very fresh perspective. And also having a background in design kind of helps because designers are always taught to, solve problems in the most effective way, in the most easiest way, and look for multiple solutions, right? So we've always kind of used that approach to say, okay, if we have this problem, what are the ways in which we can solve it? And let's look at the most easiest, fastest, simplest way of doing it. And that's what we kind of go and implement. I think, and that's what we've actually been trying to empower a lot of people that have come from an industry background to say that, one of the things that I actually used to get really annoyed about is when we ask someone how, we have this problem, how do you solve it? And people, I've had a lot of folks kind of start out the sentence saying, oh, in my previous organization, this is what we used to do, right? And I always used to tell them, like, you know, it's fine to know what you used to do, but it's a very different context. Like what would have worked for that organization may not work for us. So it's good to know how others are solving a problem, but it's always better for us to kind of take a fresh look at it and see what's the easiest, simplest, fastest way of doing something. So I would say that's like not having a background in doing this before has actually helped us in doing it in a way that I think works better. Um, and I think secondly, we made a very conscious decision early on that, we used to run our design studio in a very different way. At least we felt that we did, as opposed to how corporations work. And so our intention was we want to take our way of running an organization and see if we're able to scale that up. And that's still our endeavor to say that, we will put a lot of trust and faith in the people that we hire. We will empower them to make their own decisions and, help them hold them responsible for those decisions. Right? Because at the end of the day, when people feel that they are responsible for their own uh, fate or career, they're so much more motivated to put in their best effort. And that way, then you're not running behind them to get the results. They're driving the results themselves. And I think that's one of our key beliefs that has I feel helped us attract the right people to the organization and also keep them motivated to deliver their best. If I had to kind of sum it up, you know, a lot of this kind of stems from our core philosophy, which is to say that happy minds create magic, right? As long as our focus is that people enjoy the work that they do and are happy doing it, they will deliver results. And hence, like hence my designation is creator of happiness, and like that's my core focus in the organization to make sure that people are happy and people enjoy the work that they do. And as long as that is true, the results will come. We don't need to worry about that.
Very well put, Musher. Absolutely, because this is the happiness is what the most important thing that people actually chase for, right? I mean, career, life, health, everything is important. But if somebody's happy, the outcome is always there. But Musher, there is always a conflict when somebody is looking at hiring people, right? Whether you go for the relevant past experience or you go for a candidate having potential. Now,
Mhm.
somebody with a past experience, you have the history to rely upon, but a candidate having potential is a forward-looking thing. It's in future. Now, in such a scenario, how do you evaluate between the two prospects, and how do you identify a candidate has a potential or no?
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, if I had to choose between those two candidates, I would more rather go with the person with potential as opposed to experience, because that person is going to be so much more motivated for that role than the person who's already done it in the past and is going to do the same thing again, right? Because they've already done it. I mean, everybody needs a new challenge, a new thing to look forward to. And hence, I think, we usually try and get people who have the potential but have not performed at a certain level to kind of get them to that next level and give them that new challenge. Now, identifying potential is more of an art than a science, I would say. And you know, I have my own ways of doing it through questions that I ask people in the interview. But you're ideally looking for aptitude and an attitude towards work and life. And I think one of my single most way of judging this is to say, is a person passionate about things in life, right? And I feel like if you are passionate about one thing in life, you will carry that dedication and passion in the work that you do as well. Hence, like, if you look at our team, we have a team of people who are, singers, who are dancers, who are, marathon runners, who are, great at climbing mountains and, stuff like that. Something that they're passionate about that really drives them, right? So one of my first questions to anybody in an interview is, what is it that you're passionate about? And like, if you didn't have to work for money, what is it that you would like to do in life, right? And I usually reject people who don't have a passion in life, because my theory is that if you're not passionate about anything, then why would I expect you to be dedicated to your work either, right? Then it's just a job, and then you're just doing it for the money, and then that doesn't help.
Absolutely, Mushir, because I think passion is what something, it keeps the soul alive, so to speak,
Mhm.
right? And there is hope of something better, right? When
Yeah.
somebody is passionate about doing things. But for the benefit of other startup founders, if you can share your strategy, how do you keep your team motivated towards a common goal, right?
Mhm.
It's good that you ask these questions about passion and all of that, but once you have recruited, once you have onboarded them, now keeping everybody aligned towards the same goal is not an easy
Mhm.
task either, right? And
Yeah.
you've done this in style in such a short time, so I would like to pick your brain specifically on this as well.
Yeah, definitely. So I think again, two, three things here. One is to have a single purpose defined for the organization that you are able to convey over and over again within the organization, right? So our single most important purpose is, aligning ourselves with Friesia's goals and objectives, right? Because that's as an organization, that's what we do. And by inference, then, we are aligned with Friesia's goals and objectives. Now, when we look at that, Frisia has a very clear purpose of saying they are making the healthcare experience better for people in the US, right? Now, that gives us a very good thing to talk about on our end, saying no matter what department you are in, you are contributing towards making healthcare better for people in the US, right? And whether it, and as long as you're able to connect the work that somebody does to the final outcome, that is what gives them purpose, right? So if I am an analyst who is implementing the software, in towards the end, that software is going to be used by a patient who will, be able to save time when they go to the hospital and get care much better. If I am a designer who is designing a campaign that's going to be presented to patients, it will allow them to access information that they previously did not have, and hence, make their experience of healthcare much better. So I think it's important for each team to kind of form that connection as to how the work that they do aligns with the larger purpose that the organization has. And one thing that I've learned is communicate, communicate, and communicate. Like within the organization, also, over communication is not a thing. I think the more that you can communicate with people, the better it is. Because it really, the first time you tell somebody something, uh, they will probably listen to it and forget after some time. But when they hear the same thing a bunch of times from a bunch of different people, that's when it becomes subconsciously registered to say that, okay, I know why I'm doing this, and I know where it is making an impact, and that's why I'm here, right? So I think this is something that we've also realized over the years that internal communication is very, very important. And we put in a lot of effort in terms of driving communication in environment to a point where uh, we actually hold a all hands call on every Monday to kind of kick off the day for the entire kick off the week for the entire organization, where it's mostly me talking to the whole organization on one single call, but then we do bring in a lot of people to kind of address the organization, to talk about things that are important, to actually hold sessions around. So like last Monday happened to be the World International Day of Happiness, and we had Professor Shashadri, who's kind of done a lot of work in that realm, and he was able to kind of come in and address the entire organization, focusing on what is it that drives happiness for people, right? So it is these kind of uh, events and activities that actually are focused a lot on just driving alignment through the organization, which we do consistently to keep that going and keep people motivated. There are also a lot of other things that happen peripherally, which I won't focus on a lot, but we've kind of made it very important for people to have fun in the organization. So, no matter what you do, you have to prioritize having fun, right? Otherwise it doesn't happen. To a point where we do this very interesting thing called as deal time, and it stands for deal stands for drop everything and learn. And where we actually have said that, okay, Friday 3 to 4, 1 hour, while it is during your work time, we are giving that hour to you for you to focus on learning whatever skill you want to develop or you want to learn. And it doesn't necessarily have to be work related. Like you can spend that time learning how to compose music, or how to play an instrument, or how to paint with watercolor, or whatever it is that is your passion. We as an organization are committed to kind of you getting better at things, so that you can then, it allows you to recharge yourself from the work that you do, and it will allow you to be better at what you do at work as well.
Absolutely, Mooshir. I think this is very, very important. But when the team grows too fast, there is a very high chance to slip somewhere in between. So wanted to ask you, because you did touch base upon trust as a mechanism, right? I mean, so how do you develop trust in your team members, right? Because it appears that this is your DNA in itself, right? You're focusing and you're giving complete freedom, challenges at the same time to those employees. But how do you instill trust in somebody?
Yeah, no, I think I've always been a big believer of the fact that every organization has a certain culture, right? And this actually occurred to me the first time when I went to study in NYU as well. Like that was a very foreign environment for me. And when I went to school, I realized that everybody in my school, in my department, was a really nice person. Like whether it was a student or a faculty or a system admin guy or whoever, no matter who I went and spoke to, they were just really, really nice. And so I started to think about why that is. And I realized, culture always kind of seeps in from the top to the bottom, right? It depends on the leaders of an institution and organization in terms of how they deal with people, that everybody kind of, normally aligns to them. And hence, we've made a very conscious effort to make sure that, you know, uh, we kind of lead by example in terms of how we want the organization to be. We put our trust in the people that directly report to us, and encourage them to do the same for further downstream, right? And I think that's really helped us kind of create that overall environment. Um, and there are very small things that we kind of do, which I feel kind of lead to this larger whole. Like one of the things that we really emphasized on is to say that nobody is to refer anybody else as a sir or a ma'am, right? Like you have to address everybody on a first name basis itself. It just brings around a certain humility in everyone, and kind of make sure that there is mutual respect for everybody, regardless of the position or designation that they hold, right? And it is things like these which I feel go a long way in kind of building that trust in the team and in the organization.
Absolutely, absolutely, Moshe. But in every team there are high performers, average performers, and non-performers. So wanted to ask you, what is your evaluation criteria, and how do you strive to upgrade these non-performers?
Yeah. No, I think that is, that is very, very true. And I think we have very well defined kind of, KRAs or key responsibility areas for everybody, for every role, for every designation. And while a lot of it is functional to say that, okay, if you are an analyst in this role, you're expected to deliver X amount of work in a certain time frame. But there's also a lot of behavioral competencies that we focus on, right? I think helping others, being, caring for others, and all of that is also part of their evaluation process. Like you might be really good at your work, but if you're a difficult person to work with, then the value that you provide is not as much, right? And so, um, I mean, we put a lot of effort in defining the KRAs, the career paths, and key responsibilities for every role, every designation, which are also actually done in conjunction with the team itself. So, like a manager sits with the team to say, okay, this is what we are defining for you, and the team, also has a say in terms of if they agree with it or not. Because like, there's no point in asking a team to do something which they feel is difficult to achieve, right? Or too hard for them. So yeah, I think, and once you kind of establish those, people are measured against that. And I mean, talk, I always tell my managers that, their job is synonymous to that of a teacher in a classroom, right? It's more important for them to focus on people who are not doing so well as opposed to people who are doing so well. Because the people who are doing well, they're motivated, they kind of already know their stuff, they will figure out some things. And I mean, we do have a rewards and recognition program which also recognizes them and encourages them. But the focus of a manager needs to be on the people who are non-performers, right? Because they are the ones who need more help, more support, and try to get them up to speed. And we've had a lot of instances where at times it's just not the right fit. Where like we've had people who been not doing so well in a particular role and team, and we realize once we look closely that it's not that they don't want to do it, or that there is a will issue or a skill issue. It's just not the right fit. And so, in such cases, we actually give them an opportunity to move to another role or another team where they might be better suited for. And, we've had some very good success in doing that. People end up doing so much better once they're better aligned to, a different task or a different role. Um, so yeah, I mean, we kind of do all of those things. There are times when you have to take some tough decisions where, even after working with someone for a very long time, if they're not able to come up the curve, at the end of the day, we're still running a business, and you have to unfortunately ask people to leave if they're not performing. But that's part and parcel of any business. We try to provide as much support and opportunity for people as possible to kind of get them up to curve, or change the work that they have to do. But yeah, I think for some people it doesn't work out, and then you have to kind of live with the consequences. So,
Wow, this is amazing, Mushir, because since last 25, 30 minutes, what we've spoken about, essentially it's all about building a team, right? And yours is a classic case study, where you have actually built it in a rocket time frame, where we hear about layoffs every other day in the industry. Here you are recruiting more and more people, right? And this is with the right attitude, with the right efforts being put into directing people. So this is amazing. But Moshe, before you leave, I'd like to ask you one last question, about any specific advice that you want to give to potential startup founders, because many people, they start up with a bang, but problem is they are unable to scale up. And I think team formation is plays a huge role, right? From for taking a company from 0 to 10, or for that matter, even 100. So if you can just talk about that last bit.
yeah, um, I think one of the most important things that I've learned in business is perseverance. I think businesses have a way of kind of going through ups and downs. There will always be good times and bad times. As long as you're able to persevere and kind of not give up, you will figure out how to kind of get through things. That's one of the things that I talk to everybody. In terms of building a team, I think it's important to find the right people at a leadership level, because they are the ones who are going to drive a significant portion of the organization going forward. And these are the people that you have to be able to trust completely with the work that they do, and have an alignment with them in terms of the decisions that they make, so that you are then not micromanaging things from that point on. I think hiring uh, good people at the leadership and senior leadership level is the single most important factor in terms of whether or not your business is going to be successful. And we've had some very good success in doing that. And I think that's been the cause of a lot of the growth that we've seen. Of course, you will always you know at the end of the day, running a business is making 100, maybe 1,000 decisions every point of time, and you're not going to make all of them right. You try your best to do the most of them right. You will make some bad decisions ultimately, or at least make a decision that turns out to be bad eventually, and you have to course correct as soon as you can, and learn from it, and not repeat that mistake. Like, we've also had instances where we've hired the wrong people for the wrong role, which has set us back by 3 months or 6 months even, because it takes time to hire someone, it takes time to onboard someone, and it takes time to then realize that they're not up to the job, and then you have to let them go and then start all over again. So uh, we've made some mistakes as well along the way, but the faster you fail, the quicker you learn, right? So yeah, I think I'm sure a lot of people must have heard this from a lot of other sources, but I do agree to it that if you want to fail, fail fast and learn from it quicker, so that you can get on the track sooner.
Absolutely, absolutely, Mooshir. So it was wonderful speaking to you, and thank you for taking out time today for speaking to us and sharing your strategies and the way you've scaled up your organization. It was lovely speaking to you, Mooshir.
Yeah, same here. No, it's really nice talking to you as well, Rishabh, and I'm glad I got this opportunity to speak about it.
Awesome. So to all our audiences, thank you for tuning in for the show. We shall continue our mission of bringing in more such real life stories, guys. Goodbye. Signing off for now.